From the KDLM studios, it's time for Hodge Podge, presented by Partnership for Health and airing on Lakes TV3.
Good morning. Welcome into Hodge Podge on this very first day of September 2020. I'm Joel Ketke. Today on Hodge Podge, one of our favorite guests, Kelly Blackledge, joins us from the Tamarac National Wildlife Refuge via the Zoom studios this morning. Kelly, good morning.
Good morning.
I love your backdrop. You always have such interesting backdrops when you visit with us here.
I'm just always at Tamarac. Virtually.
It is, fall is just around the corner, and we got a lot of stuff to get to today. Kelly, we're going to talk a little bit about firewood, how apropos, since our temperatures a week ago were in the 90s. Now we're seeing overnight lows in the 50s and upper 40s. What's going on with firewood cutting at Tamarac?
Right. This is the perfect time for those campfires, right? Those cool evenings, and you just want to have a campfire by the lake. This is perfect timing. And as it cools off, that becomes a pretty good time to start cutting wood. And we do have opportunities for people to cut wood on the refuge. So we do issue a firewood permit for, it's a $10 fee. And you can cut up to 5 pickup loads of wood if you would like. There are some stipulations on where to cut. It's really kind of helping us out in terms of clearing up some of the trees that have fallen over the summer that are laying alongside roads and things like that. So you can call the refuge to get more information about how to get a permit, and firewood cutting will happen, I believe, through February. So, or as long as there's access to some of the areas to get back in to cut firewood. So if you're needing some firewood for this winter, it's not too early to start looking, and you can do some cutting on the refuge and have a campfire or heat your house or whatever it might be. But yeah, I can't believe it's fall.
I know, you and I both. I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm assuming this is all DNR approved firewood.
Absolutely. So yeah, local stuff.
We just want to throw that out there because we don't want folks burning stuff. When you talk about, you mentioned the comment that you're actually helping the refuge by removing some of these trees. Obviously, this is something you guys do every year. Any idea how much wood is removed by residents from throughout the area?
Actually, not much.
Really?
We haven't had a lot of interest in our firewood program. I don't know if it's just bit of a ways to drive for folks and there's more stuff available closer. But on some of our trail accesses where the trees have fallen, that really kind of helps. Most of the time in the woods, we let the trees lay. That it's wildlife habitat and those kind of things. But there are some areas where there are some fire breaks or things like that where we need to remove some of those trees that have fallen. So this is all down wood. Nothing will be dropped. It's already down on the ground that just kind of needs to be cleaned up in some of the areas along our trails. So,
Kelly, I know you wanted to talk about some stuff going on at the sanctuary.
Yeah, so as you know, north of Highway 26 on the refuge, that whole northern part of the refuge is sanctuary area. And so that's closed in the spring and through the summer for wildlife. That's where kind of a sanctuary for wildlife where there are migratory birds and nesting birds and young wildlife. Anyway, so as of September 1st, that sanctuary area opens. So people are welcome to go hiking through there. And of course, some of that is our hunting areas as well. So the sanctuary area as of today is now open. So you can hike through those trails. So for example, trails like the Chippewa Trail or Tea Cracker Trail, maybe you're familiar with some of those areas. And then once we get to the 15th, middle of September, small game season will open. That's popular for some folks to go grouse hunting on the refuge and some other small game. We do have, as of last year, a little bit different hunting map. So you'll want to pick up a map. All of the kiosks have maps, hunting maps on them, so you can see where those hunting areas are. A little bit of change, particular in the waterfowl hunting. And then, of course, we do have turkey hunting now that wasn't available on the refuge before.
Well, I got to ask you a question about grouse. A couple of weeks ago, I was up in the Smoky Hills National Forest doing some ATV riding on some trails with my daughter. and we were way off the main trail, out in the woods. And all of a sudden I look to my left, and here's a female grouse with 3 of her little ones. And they're literally running right alongside the four-wheeler. And we stopped, and they were not afraid. And I did some research, and I just want to check to see if you've heard the same thing. So the thumping that a male grouse makes from a mating call standpoint apparently sounds somewhat similar to the exhaust on an ATV. And that's why some of these grouse follow. Have you ever heard this, Kelly?
No.
I saw a story on Ron Shera, Minnesota Bound, was talking about a guy in northern Minnesota who had this grouse that would follow him around occasionally.
Oh, yep.
Hop up on his ATV.
I remember seeing that one.
And go for a ride. And so here we are out in the forest, and a beautiful grouse and her 3 little ones, and they were just walking right alongside and we weren't going very fast. They were certainly not startled, but I just thought I'd ask you about that because I've never heard that a mating grouse sounds like a 4-stroke ATV.
Yeah. And of course, this time of year that you do still hear some drumming, actually, which always amazes me. It's typically a very spring sound that you hear when you hear some drumming, but occasionally you'll hear a little bit of drumming through the summer season as well. So, yeah, I did have a grouse chase me down a bike trail once on my bike. I could hardly pedal fast enough to get away from this grouse, but no doubt it was in the spring, and I had probably interrupted a mating ritual or some kind of territory thing happening there. So,
well, you're not alone, Kelly. I got attacked by a bittern.
Oh, you were telling me about that.
We were out pheasant hunting, and unfortunately walked up on its nest. It didn't know I was coming, and vice versa. And it popped up, and it hit me on the knee with its beak. And I got to be honest, that hurt. Just a little bit. You talked about hunting. Now, we're going to take a short break here in Hodge Podge. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about fall hunting, the colors, and also Friends of Tamarac. Stick around. Back with part 2 on Hodge Podge right after this.
And now, back to KDLM Hodge Podge, also airing on Lakes TV3.
And welcome back into Hodge Podge on this first day of September. Joel Ketke, and via our Zoom studios, we're talking with Kelly Blackledge from the Tamarac National Wildlife Refuge. Kelly, we were talking before the break a little bit about hunting. You were talking about some of the things that go on in the refuge. Large population of turkeys. How's the whitetail population at Tamarac?
Yep. Well, I certainly see them every day when I'm out there. There are some out there, you bet. It was, fairly good winter. We were a little concerned with all the snowfall that we had, but we have seen a lot of young out there. So hopefully it'll be another good season on the refuge for whitetail as well.
I know the turkey population is huge because I get to travel from Fergus Falls to Perham, Detroit Lakes, and I run past Tamarac on a pretty regular basis. You might as well just put a crossing sign out there, Kelly.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to stop because there's been a row of turkeys going all the way across the road.
Yep. Yes, so we were certainly glad to be able to add that to the hunting that happens on the refuge in the past year. So we do have some some areas that are open to spring turkey hunting as well. That's always a popular time, but certainly fall season is there's a lot on the refuge areas that you can hunt for fall, and then won't be long before duck season comes around too.
Of course, with duck season,
I just can't believe it.
It is. I was up on the North Shore last weekend, and some of the trees were just starting to turn a little bit yellow, changing a little bit of colors. I don't like to talk about fall colors because it's only the 1st of September, but Tamarac is a gorgeous place to go visit when the fall colors come into full swing.
Oh, yeah. And the sumacs right now are starting to turn. And so there's a little, I kind of like when there's a green background, and then some of those fall colors start popping up. So the beginning of fall is really, I just think is pretty spectacular. And and hiking season is like, it's here. And it's getting to be fall as well as wild rice season starts. So on the refuge, we do have a tribal harvest only on the refuge for the collection of wild rice. So you may see some canoes out there on many of the lakes, and they are harvesting right now. It's kind of an interesting process to watch. You can see from the Chippewa picnic area or the Flat Lake overlook. There's some really great places where there's some pretty good harvesting happening, and that'll happen through the next few weeks here. We'll see people harvesting wild rice, which is scrumptious, right? Don't you eat rice?
I eat a lot of wild rice. Absolutely, I do. Kelly, I was going to ask
like wild rice and crappie chowder.
Okay, now you're just making me hungry.
Yeah.
I want to just ask you about the process of harvesting wild rice. How exactly how does wild rice get harvested? Do they actually pull the plants over and still beat them? I guess I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, so they're still harvesting in the traditional way using a canoe and a push pole. So they're pushing canoes through that tall rice. And then the person at the front and that's the person in the back, and the person at the front of the canoe is using the poles to pull the rice over and knock it into the canoe. So it just falls into the canoe as they push through that rice. So they'll come back to the landing with a canoe filled with green rice. Yeah.
That's a lot of work, but boy, folks certainly we love our wild rice, don't we?
We do, and we're very particular in this neck of the woods. Not just any wild rice, right? You can't just get the stuff from California. We like wood parched, good local wild rice. You can't beat it.
You can tell by two things: A, the way it looks, and B, the way it tastes, whether or not you're actually getting local wild rice.
I love that nutty flavor. Yep.
I do too.
Do some of the wildlife. So this time, as the wild rice starts to drop some seeds, this is where we'll see some of those ringneck ducks starting to come in good numbers. Obviously trumpeter swans, and there's a lot of wildlife that benefit from the wild rice, and there's plenty for people and wildlife out there. So the harvesting that happens on the refuge does not affect how much is available for the wild animals that are out there as well.
Kelly, you talked about duck season just around the corner, and I'm going to put you on the spot because I'm not sure on this. Is the Tamarac National Refuge in any kind of a flyway, or is it mostly just local ducks that are raised here and then leave as it gets a little bit colder?
A little bit of both. We certainly see good numbers of ringnecks that come through this area, and then obviously wood ducks and mallards and those kind of things. So yeah, we do see not just the ones that are local, but good numbers of flocks that come through.
And I tell you what, folks, if you've never been out on the water in the fall and seen mallards, wood ducks, pintails, and ringbills, the whole 9 yards, they are in full plume in the fall, and their colors are fantastic. And as an outdoorsman and a guy who likes to hunt, there's nothing more gorgeous than a male wood duck, a drake, when it's full and got all the colors. One of the most beautiful birds out there, I'm sure. Yeah,
and Tamarac has the woods for it. So
yes, they do.
We do see quite a few. Yep. So this time of year also we're gearing up for school, if you can believe it or not. But we see a lot of school kids coming out in the fall. And this year the Friends of Tamarac are doing some fundraising activities to try to help us move that to some virtual educational opportunities. We really want to get kids outside, obviously, but they do have a quilt raffle happening. So you can get on their social media site, tamaracfriends.com, their website. And they do have a really cool 88 by 88 inch quilt that they're raffling off for $2 a ticket. And then they also have an auction coming up. So this Thursday, from noon to 7 at the Lakeside parking lot, they'll be collecting silent auction items. So we're looking for antiques or things that are really good on online auctions that'll help us raise some funds to help with our educational programs. So we'll also be collecting in the Moorhead area, the Moorhead Mall, and that'll be on the 10th of September. There will be a place for collection there. So if there's somebody in the Fargo-Moorhead area that has something cool that they'd like to donate. So on this cloudy day, it's a great time to go through your garage or your closets or whatever and see if there's something special that you think somebody else might find a treasure and kind of clean things out. So yes, they also have, one thing, we talked a little bit about hiking, and hiking is, it's just really getting to be the season. And one thing that is a little frustrating about Tamarac is that we do not have any accessible trails on the refuge. All of our trails have kind of uneven ground. There are some that are pretty flat and easy to move through, but we don't really have any accessible trails. So the Friends of Tamarac are also helping us build an accessible trail from the Discovery Center that we can use with our educational programs as well. You know, sometimes those kids that aren't able to get through uneven ground aren't able to come with their class, and we don't want to have anyone left out when it comes to connecting with nature. So you can also find access to SOAR. They're doing a GoFundMe site, and we're looking to get that accessible trail developed right there at the Discovery Center. So they have a lot going on right now. And we're excited to start connecting with kids again this fall.
Kelly, you talked about kids, and obviously field trips to Tamarac is a popular thing. Some students, like I know my kids at Perm started their first day of school today. What are you expecting for the fall? Are you expecting students to be able to come out and do their field trips? I know you talked about trying to do some stuff virtually, but what is the plan for fall, or what do you expect?
Yeah, so we're going to be working with teachers virtually and students from a distance. But what we're really hoping is that families are still going to be able to come out to the refuge. We're really encouraging families to utilize this fall time to come out to the trails. We'll have some. We still have that discovery box, so we have some activities available on site for families to take part in. So even if they can't get on a bus with their class, you know, and come to the refuge, we still really hope to see some students. And, you know, this spring we had a super uptick in people coming out to the refuge and wanting to get outside. And I'm hoping that we see that again this fall, that, you know, people utilize these beautiful places on the refuge to find some solace, you know, and really get the camera out. Like you said, the colors are fantastic. They're just great places to hike on the refuge and connect with nature.
Kelly, from a size standpoint, to give people some perspective, how big is the Tamarac National Wildlife Area?
Yeah, so it's 43,000 acres, which doesn't really mean a whole lot, but it's about 12 miles long and 6 miles wide. So there is a lot of space out there. And now with the sanctuary area open, except for a small closed area around our maintenance shop and such, the whole place is open for hiking, and the wildlife drive is open. There are roads that bisect. There's just so many cool places you can go. And what I love about this time of year is that you can go to places that weren't open in the summertime, you know, so you can access some pretty neat places on the refuge right now, some of those secret places.
Kelly, before we run out of time here this morning, for folks listening today, maybe educators, teachers, parents that want to figure out or looking for some things to do at Tamarac, how can folks get in contact with you? Right.
So you can it's easiest to follow us on social media. We'll have all the information there, or you can check us out on our webpage, the Tamarac, just Google Tamarac Refuge or tamaracfriends.org, and you'll find information about all the activities that we have coming up for this fall and some neat things that you can download right from the website.
Kelly, before we let you run, anything else you want folks to be aware of?
Well, I just hope I really hope to see people on the refuge. You know, I don't miss out on the month of September and October. You know, it's not always going to be here. We're going to start to freeze up at some point. So take advantage of all these great colors. Get your camera out and join us on the refuge for some hiking, fall fishing, hunting. All these activities are going to be happening this fall. It'd be a great place to be.
Sounds good. Kelly Blackledge from the Tamarac National Wildlife Refuge, our guest today. Kelly, always a pleasure. Have a great September, and we'll chat again in October.
Thank you.
All right. That is Kelly Blackledge with the Tamarac National Wildlife Refuge. And again, Kelly, our guest here today on Hodge Podge. That's going to bring Hodge Podge to a close here on this Tuesday. Stick around. We'll wrap up